Post your own creepy experiences. I'll post a few of my personal stories, starting with my most recent. Be me. About a year ago. Living alone in a small apartment that used to be the attic of an old house. In my bedroom/living room, there was a window. Pic related, not the one I'm talking about. Was barely getting by, and usually only ate once a day. Started having trouble sleeping. For some reason, my attention was always directed at the window, whenever I lay in bed. There was no curtain, so it was just a view into the darkness of the night. I start having weird dreams/nightmares every night, about nonsensical things. One night I am suddenly awoken by the sound of tapping on my window. I nearly shit myself, and turned to look for whatever it was. There was nothing there. The tapping was way too deliberate and loud to simply be rain or anything like that. This happens every night for about 2 weeks. At the end of the second week I am sleep deprived, and paranoid. I tried to record the window, but my phone would always run out of disk space before anything happened. Always happened between 1 to 3 a.m., give or take 30 minutes. The last night that it happened, I suddenly woke up to find myself sitting on my bed, but the bed was placed in the middle of a forest at night, obviously a dream, but it felt real at the moment. The only source of light is a small oil lamp placed to the right of the bed. Feel a chill run down my spine, as I notice something else. Something is sitting next to the oil lamp, and staring directly at me. It was only a few feet tall, but it radiated a numbingly terrifying presence. The flame started flickering, as if it was about to go out. The thing starts talking, "Your flame is dying. What will you do when you are alone in the darkness with me?" Getting goosebumps just thinking about it. About a second goes by, and then the flame dies out. I am immediately awoken by violent banging on my window. I turn to see a dark shape move swiftly away from the window. Moved back in with my parents after that. Hasn't happened since. The next story happened a few years ago, when I lived in Africa. Africa. Be a fucked continent, soaked in negative energy, dark magic, witchcraft and whatnot. BTW yes, witchcraft is real, and it is abundant in the native villages. I've seen some shit. Anyway, I lived in a house on the outskirts of Ndola, Zambia. Property was surrounded by a 12-foot concrete wall, with barbed wire on top. Still didn't deter thieves. We had about 3 break-ins, before we decided to buy a guard dog. She was a bad motherfucker, part Doberman and part Rottweiler. Only loyal to us, and extremely hostile against other people. Every night she would patrol around the house and bark violently, even if there was nothing there. That way she deterred anyone who might have gotten any bright ideas. To sum up, she wasn't scared of anything and would attack anything and anyone who wasn't part of my family. So when I awoke one night to hear her whimper, I knew something was up. I got out of bed, and went to the living room. There was a window to the front lawn, where her dog house was. I could see the faint shape of a dog, standing a few feet from the window. Too dark to see properly, but I open the window and start talking to her, to calm her down. Hear someone calling my name in my native language, Danish. It came from outside. But I couldn't see anyone from my family out there. Then I hear the whimpering again. Look down and see the guard dog curled up beneath the window. I start shitting bricks, as I gaze at the faint shape that I was looking at earlier. I fumble for the light switch, so that I can illuminate whatever the fuck is standing there. Finally turn on the light. It was definitely shaped like a dog, on all fours and shit. But its eyes were undeniably human looking. It's showing its teeth, but it looked like a fucked up attempt at a smile. Its teeth were also akin to human teeth, no canines. I once again hear my name being called, and realize it's coming from that mangy fucker. Then it simply backed up into the darkness and slowly dissipated into the shadows. Guard dog was unharmed, but definitely spooked. I never looked out of the windows at night after that. Another story from Africa incoming. Be me. new to the neighborhood, and decides to go for a walk. Everything is run down and badly constructed, but it had a certain charm to it that doesn't exist in Western countries. Come across a huge fucking tree that was fenced in. Ask one of the locals why it was fenced in. They say something along the lines of the tree is cursed. It is filled with evil spirits and demons. Don't believe them, this happened before the dog incident. Notice a small plaque attached to the fence, and decide to read what it says. It tells a weird story of a group of children finding a hole in the tree, and climbing in to find that the entire trunk is hollow. The hole supposedly closed up while the children were inside, leaving them to pound at the tree from the inside, screaming for help until they died. Thought it was probably some fucked up native tale, and continued on my walk. That night, a violent thunderstorm rolled in. If you've lived in Africa, you know the kind I'm talking about. The next day, I'm out walking the dog, when I once again pass the tree area, except, the tree is gone. It had been completely obliterated by lightning, covering the ground in wood and shrapnel. The thing is, it was in the middle of a small area surrounded by large buildings, far taller than it was. The lightning shouldn't have hit the tree, since it wasn't the tallest point in the area. The way the debris was scattered, made it look like the tree had simply exploded, rather than being struck by lightning. Dog didn't want to go anywhere near ground zero, and neither did I. Hear from my dad a few days later, that they had found bones in the bottom of the former trunk. Turns out it really was hollow. This story takes place before we moved to Africa. Be me. Move into an old house from the 1700s with family. Not a big house, but still pretty spacey. It was very nice and had an old, cozy quality to it. At least I thought so at first. As time passed, I became increasingly aware of this weird presence in the house. You'd often see something out the corner of your eye, or something walk by a window at inhuman speeds. I shared a room with my sister, and my brother shared a room with my older sister. Their room was fucking terrifying. It's hard to explain, but I had trouble breathing when I entered it, and felt very uneasy. Just thinking about it gives me the creeps. One of the corners of the room especially freaked me out. There hung a large piece of black cloth, which separated the room from a small nook that had no ceiling, meaning it went directly up to the attic. There was also a cardboard box, filled with weird shit, like a skull made out of brass or something, which had been left by the previous owners. When my dad found the box, he immediately tossed in the trash. What a waste. Anyway, my brother and sister had a lot of very weird experiences there at night. Waking up to footsteps coming from the attic and other shit. Parents didn't take them seriously. One night, my sister wakes up and hears something scuttling across the floor towards her bed. She closes her eyes in fear, and doesn't open them out of fear. She feels something small climb into her bed. She's crying at this point, when she hears a voice whisper into her ear. If you want to see a demon, then open your eyes. She lies motionless and cries profusely. Suddenly, the thing jumps off her and runs back to that corner, as my parents come running. My brother had heard her crying, and went to get them. They had a bunk bed, and she was in the top bunk. My dad checked the attic the next day, but found nothing. This experience still has my sister fucked up to this very day. I had two experiences in that house that really stuck with me. One night, while I was asleep, I woke up to feel my duvet slowly being pulled off me. I watched on in bewilderment and horror, as some unseen force slowly dragged it across the floor to the other end of the room. I remember feeling gusts of air, and hearing what sounded like a hurricane outside of my room. My sister, the one I shared a room with, was sound asleep, and didn't seem to notice anything. I tried to stay calm, but completely lost it when the shadows seemed to start forming vaguely human shapes, as they advanced towards my bed. I started screaming and crying. My parents heard, their room was next to mine, and came storming in. As soon as they turned on the light, everything went back to normal. The hurricane sounds were gone, and there were no shadow people. My sister woke up and was very confused. Parents told me that I had just had a bad dream or something. At first, I found some comfort in that thought, but then I realized that my duvet was still laying on the other side of the room. It looked like it had been dragged, and not like it had been thrown. Sleep in my parents' room for a few nights, my last contribution before I go to bed. Might post more tomorrow, if y'all can keep this thread alive until then. One day alone in Spoopy house. Have a friend over, because I don't feel safe when I'm alone. Show him around the place. He doesn't seem to pick up on anything supernatural. Show him this little storage shed we have in the backyard. Some old furniture from the previous owners and shit like that. Large wooden closet, kinda the same size as the one from Narnia, but modern, stands out to us. For some reason we both feel drawn to it. Like the dumbasses we are, we open it up, and step inside whilst making goofy Narnia jokes. He closes the doors, and makes those spoopy oh noises. Both laugh. The inside of the closet is slightly illuminated, because of a small gap between the doors. As we goof off, I notice something that makes me shit out my spine in terror. Above my friend's left shoulder, there is a face. My friend notices my expression, and starts panicking. He tries to open the doors, but they won't budge, even though there was nothing on the other side to block them. All the while, this face just stays still and looks at me. The doors suddenly give way, and we fucking bolt out of there. Never visited me again.
Old story, but it's the only paranormal experience I remember. Parents recount some strange shit when I was very young though. B14 to 15 Christmas Eve. It's late, I'm up playing Vigio or working on some shit. Comfy and tired, but don't want to go to bed yet. Comfy Christmas Pepe.png. Need that sweet caffeine. Decide to make like Forrest Gump and obtain Dr. Pepper. Silently operate down hallway, careful not to wake family. Hallway opens to an indoor balcony overlooking the living room, which is dominated by a Christmas tree and big picture windows. Moonless night looms thick and impenetrable on the far side of the glass. Dark AF inside except for the light of the tree, which casts the room in dim shades of stained glass and fine, muted shadows. Against the far wall an old stereo cabinet sits, and atop it an heirloom music box that plays Little Drummer Boy. 90 to 100 years old or something, dunno. Not very spoopy. It's in great condition for its age, and despite the music box connotation, the tune it plays is just too nice to be eerie. It sits out somewhere every Christmas to this day, and had every year before then. Have only positive, comfy associations. Everything is in its right place. I steal down the stairs, my glorious 23 flavors drawing ever nearer. Only something's up. I freeze mid-step. Adrenaline seeps into my blood. The music box is playing. Not just a little either, but strongly, and from a full wind. Early in the song too. Tactically shit holiday gift-wrapped bricks. Nobody has been up for hours, and it rarely gets wound anyway. Certainly no way it's been going the whole time. Can't decide if I should be terrified or having some profound religious experience. Steel myself for haunting by 3 chrono ghosts who will presumably instruct me on the health effects of staying up too late all the time and approach the music box. Pick it up, stare dumbfounded at the key as it goes round and round in the bottom, just as fast as it should from full wind. My face when. Can't make myself put it down, though half of me is full fight or flight mode. It's Little Drummer Boy. On Christmas. Surely it can't be anything bad. Come on, that's some magical spirit of Christmas shit. Still anxious AF, but don't want to seem ungrateful if it is some /x/tier benevolent shit. Muster what little breath I have and look over to the Christmas tree and the darkness behind it. Sup Jesus. Managed to sound pretty cool and composed. Thanks for helping people and stuff. Happy birthday. Set music box back down. Feel the warm, safe light from my room upstairs beckoning me. I've played along with the holiday magic. It's all good. I can obey the urge to 360 and walk real fast out. But I've come too far for that. No man left behind. Wave. Power walk over to the fridge. Retrieve drive pepper. Sprint the fuck upstairs, shut the door, and return to Vigia, pretending as hard as I can that didn't just happen. My face when. And that's how I got spooked by Jesus dropping by to show my never really believed in Santa-ass self a little Christmas magic. Supposedly some of the shit that happened when I was young was on par, but I haven't experienced anything quite like it since.
Not super creepy, but if I think about it I get uneasy. Be 12 years old in middle school. It's 2014. After school I'd usually hang out on the left side of the building. This side is away from the main entrance/exit where everyone else was. This day though, I hung out in the hallway with my friends for a bit. Note, they leave the main doors open until a certain time after school. The hallway I was in was close enough to hear any commotion outside. Saw my other friends outside at the left side of the building through the door windows. Decided I was gonna leave through the main entrance/exit today anyways. Me and my friends were finally leaving, must have been around 3:30 or later because the doors were closed. Hardly anyone around anymore. Walk home with some friends. Few days pass. Not even a week later I finally notice that one of my friends has missed school for a few days. Her locker is covered in cards and get well soon stuff. What the fuck? Find out in class she was hit by a car. Hit by a car right outside of the school. This happened a few days ago. The same day I was talking to my friends in the hallway and left through the main entrance. What the fuck? There was an ambulance, and even the principal stayed by her to keep her calm. I clearly remember the principal staying inside the building, telling the annoying kids to leave while I was with my friends. I was in disbelief. I would have heard the ambulance, there would have been a lingering crowd. The incident happened soon enough after school that a lot of students and teachers saw it and soon enough that the doors were still open. How the fuck did I not see or hear anything, for days until now? A month later she came back, walked really stuff, but otherwise fine. I don't know if maybe I repressed it, but I clearly remember being confused once I heard about it a few days after the incident. I didn't hear about it once from anyone in between either. Middle school sucked. This one is kind of vague, since it's from early childhood. But I still think it's worth sharing. Be me. About 6 to 7 years old. Obsessed with frogs, for some reason. Love the little bastards, and frequently go on small adventures to catch some and keep them as pets. Mom won't let me keep them inside, so I keep them in this little flower bed, with a bird bath to keep them moist. Some of them stayed there, but most of them ran off at first chance. Anyway, I was out playing with them one day. It had just rained, so the ground was muddy. Perfect conditions for my little friends. While I'm playing, I suddenly hear a loud splash next to me. Sounded like someone had jumped and landed right next to me in the mud. I had actually been fucking sprayed in water and mud because of it. Rude.jpg. I look down, and see a huge boot print. Completely fresh, water is still filling into it. Book it out of there, and tell my dad. He doesn't dismiss my story, and actually goes outside with me to check it out. I show him the boot print, but he kind of shrugs it off, and tells me to just ignore it. I go inside. Later see him standing out there with all of our boots, comparing the print sizes. After dinner I hear him tell my mom that none of our boots fit the size of the print. I wasn't meant to hear it. Never found out what it was, and never experienced it again. This one isn't really paranormal, but it still fucks me up. Wake up one night to the sound of a cat going completely mental. Figure that it's just two cats duking it out, not that uncommon. having trouble falling asleep, because the wailing persists for hours. The wailing starts getting weaker, until it simply stops. Fucking finally. Rar. Wake up early because of school. Take a look at the lawn before I leave, because the sounds came from there. I see a cat laying there. Oh shit. Wave. Go closer, and inspect it. Eye is hanging out of its socket. It is bloody and bruised, obviously been worldstar hip-hop the fuck out of this plane of existence. But there was something that really made my skin crawl. It had been fucking nailed to the lawn with a long, wooden stake through its body. In other words, some fucked up dudes had beat the ever-loving shit out of a cat, and then hammered a stake through it, so that it could slowly and painfully die on our lawn. Police was called. Not much they could do. Stayed home from school that day. This one is not mine, but my dad's. Be about 16 years old. Bored AF. Decide to rent a canoe and sail down a large creek with friend. Reach a spot that seems untouched by civilization. Dense forest, with no trails or anything. Suddenly spot something off to the right. A large shed-like thingy, made of bricks. About the size of a small house, but only has one room. They decide to investigate. Inside of the structure is empty, except for the floor, which is littered with thousands upon thousands of bottle caps. Literal heaps of them, but no bottles anywhere. Takes a look around the vicinity. No path leading up to the structure, it's literally just there in the middle of nowhere, serving no purpose. Is slightly unnerved, but keeps investigating. Friend is still inside of the structure. Dad suddenly spots something. On one of the trees, there's a paw. It's not nailed to the tree, it's fucking stuck to the trunk by its claws. The rest of the animal is nowhere to be seen. Nope, out of there with the speed of 1,000 winds. Never go back.
Be me. Go to the river with my friends. While exploring, stump my foot in a tree well hidden in the water. Pain.jpg. Yell for my friends. The exact moment, I hear a ming from the riverbank on my left. I'm in the middle of the river, BTW. Holy shit. Start saying my prayers.
Κύριε μη πιλαθώ το δούλου σου νίνι πολυμένου.
Lord, don't you your slave who now meets his end. Friends come to the rescue. Told them about the ming. They start hearing it too. Thet say it's a wild pig or something. Gets louder. All scared shitless. Get the fuck out of here.
Finally, move into a nice 3-bed, 2-bath brick home. Small home, but still nicer than the dumps we had been living in. The kitchen was open to the dining and living room with a bar counter in between. There is a nice big empty wall separating the living area from the bedrooms. One day, walking by the wall, I see a big shadow of a man moving toward me. It was literally a shadow, like if you were outside in the full sun, looking at your shadow. It was on the wall, I was between the wall and the window. I did not cast a shadow that clearly and sharply on the wall. Ever. The shadow did not scare me, only surprised me. The man's shadow lasted for about 3 seconds, moving across the wall. Thinking someone was walking around my backyard, I quickly turned to look out the window. The backyard was empty. Still trying to explain it, I tell myself it must have been a bird. Go outside to see if one of the local buzzards was flying around. The sky is empty. Walk back in and stare at the wall. Tears come to me because I finally realize the shadow was the exact image of my dad, who died several years earlier.
I haven't had many experiences, but the one I do remember was from some time in middle school. Most of the other ones are one-offs that don't make for fun storytelling anyway. Be middle schooler, like I said. Friends decide to explore the woods behind our suitably ghetto town. Before the woods there's this monastery or big church or something. Huge parking lot, lots of angel statues, and a bridge leading to a grotto. The grotto is fairly peaceful, but there's stories of people seeing weird shit there. We continue past the grotto and into the woods. We trek far enough that we eventually run into a farm. We hang out on a hill for a while. I didn't mind because my busty friend was there and I had the perfect angle lol. After about an hour we trek back. We hear this sound like claws on a chalkboard. I don't mean nails either. This shit was 1,000 times worse and it echoed. We hesitantly continue onward because nobody wanted to be the pussy who stepped back and, for me, tits were on the line. By God, I wouldn't let those tits see me break. We keep going until we reach this spot with a creek. Normally we just leap over it or use this log as a bridge. But the sound seemed to be coming from just ahead. Fuck it, tits. I go first into hell. As soon as I'm over the little embankment or whatever the sound stops, I tell everyone it's safe and they follow. A few steps later there's this circle of trees and an iron door in the middle. It wasn't here before and it looked too rusted to have been just put there. In the middle is a dead cat nailed to the face. It was positioned so that I could look through the peephole. Hear low humming from other side of the door. Decide tits aren't worth it and I guess everyone else did too. We sprint the fuck out of there. A few days later I brought my grandpa's trench shovel and a flashlight to see if I could find it. I felt like I was going crazy and couldn't get the humming out of my head. Never found it. Shit was gone.
This happened about 6 years ago. Be me. Middle of the day. Studying at home, nobody is in the house with me. Hear a noise behind me, coming from the hallway. I turn around, look through the open door. See a pair of female legs walk past the door down the hall. What JPEG? Spooked, instead of following the legs I take the second door out of the room leading to the outside to catch the person, thief. No one exits the house. No one is in the house. Family returns later that night and I don't say anything to them. Then it gets spookier. Fast forward to last year. Having dinner with the family, I'd moved out at this point. Start sharing stories of our own supernatural experiences. Mum tells us how she saw a pair of legs randomly walk down the hallway while she was at home by herself.
Be me. Go for a trip with my friends in an abandoned Punic village, whose residents were executed during Bulgarian occupation. Has a church? There were a lot of other people there, most of them were cousins of my friend. Otherwise just ruins, except for the church. Have fun with the cousins, we were mocking them for being fat and all. It starts getting darker. We eat and then go to sleep. We were going to sleep inside the church. Before sleep, I get my blanket and start playing to entertain my friends. I made jokes about being God, and my friends were asking me atheist questions, why is this and that? To which I stayed purposely silent for the fun. And all, hugibris, disrespect, by my part. While sleeping, I had a dream. I dreamt about being in the same church at the exact same hour, getting up from my blanket, laying face down. In front of the Solea, part of Orthodox Church, while stretching my arms so I have a cross shape. Start praying in my dream. Hear a very loud biting coming from behind me, still dreaming. Get the fuck up and turn around. See this tall dark figure, very thin arms stretching all the way down to its feet. I'm fucking shivering. It stands still, I can notice it has some kind of hair that extends to its neck. The fear is too great. My dream continues with me waking up at the exact same spot I was sleeping. I quickly raise my head up only to see its face in front of me. This time it has huge yellow eyes, its pupils were moving all over the place. I felt like even in my dream that they were some kind of antennas that could detect all motion in their way. It says to me, "Mi lefts katofalmo," which roughly translates to "don't look in the eyes." I think I'm fainting in my dream, feel motionless and paralyzed while trying to follow its all-moving pupils. Then I woke up, for real this time, to the sound of giggling one of my friend's fat cousin was making. Really wanted to get up and hug the son of a bitch and thank him for releasing me from this nightmare. Don't do it knowing how weird that would look, plus he's a fucking slug. It's already 7 a.m., and I had no appetite for sleeping anymore. On the next day I told my friends about the incident. Apparently my friend also experienced something odd. He was having a sleep paralysis while a demon, presumably the same creature that tortured me, grabbed his penis and sexually assaulted him. Note that he recently had broken up with his GF at the time. They get pretty scared with the whole story. Some weeks fly by, and I have problems with getting out and I keep myself locked in my house. Another friend not present in our trip consults me to draw the face I saw. This is what I could come up with. Still can't sleep at night, thinking about that face.
I told this story in a thread I posted yesterday, but I'll post it again. Before I post my personal story, I need to fill you in on the legend. So strap yourselves in /x/. This is the legend of the Lost Lights. Chapter 1. Part 1. The Mountain. It all starts off in the mid-1800s. An expeditionary force of 25 men go exploring in the mountain ranges of BC, looking for suitable places to start a mine. They hike up a mountain and camp there for the night. That night when one of them gets up to go relieve their bowels, and trips and hurts their leg in the dark. In the morning it is decided that 12 men will help the injured man down the mountain and back to civilization while the rest of them, 12, continue on ahead. So the group splits up. They hiked until the evening. One of the men noticed it had gotten considerably colder. It then started to snow slightly only minutes later. He expressed his concern that they might get snowed over in the night. The others laughed it off. They joked and teased about him being scared. Part 2. The Storm. As the evening turned into twilight, it got colder and colder, the snow got heavier and heavier. They had gone a ways up the mountain, so it was a difficult and deadly situation if the storm got worse. The snow showed signs of not letting up. In fact, it was surely to become a monster storm. The 12 men faced a tough situation. They needed to get back down the mountain, or else they would freeze to death. They left their tents and took what was needed. They started back down the mountain in the raging storm. They each lit their oil lamps as they headed down. Because of the blizzard that ensued, they could hardly see the light of the man in front of them. The man who had noted the snow earlier, Jacob White, had lost sight of the lanterns. In fact, all of them seemed to have. They walked around aimlessly on the mountain, calling out, trying to find each other. Just when it couldn't get any worse, the wind became even stronger. Jacob knew he had to get down the mountain or he would die there. He stopped trying to find the others and went with the slope, slowly making his way down. He managed to get down the slope and to the base. Part 3. The Lights. Jacob ran to find the 13 men that were headed back to get help in rescuing his comrades. But he could not go on any further. The storm had spread to the bottom and across the valley. He found a nearby cave where he would spend the night. As the night progressed, he watched the lights of his fellow expeditionaries wander endlessly across the mountain in the hellish snowstorm. Throughout the night he watched them. The first light went out and disappeared at around midnight. Others followed in the next hours. One by one, they extinguished. Jacob hoped, prayed, that at least one light would last the night. The last one went out 3 hours from the first. All hope was lost. In the morning, when the storm cleared, Jacob headed further into the valley to find the 13 men that had gone back earlier yesterday. When he found them, there was only 2 left alive. The rest had died in the storm that swept down from the mountain and into the valley. The men and Jacob exchanged stories. The men told Jacob that they had seen the wandering lights up on the mountainside. The 2 men only found out in the morning that 11 men had died in the night from the cold. 3 weeks later, an expeditionary force of 20 men including Jacob, returned to recover anything of those who had died in the storm. They found the remains of the 11 men in the valley easily enough. They recovered their personal effects and what little bone they could find to bring back to their families. There was not much left of them from the wildlife picking at them. The bodies of the men who died up on the mountain, however, they found none, no sign of them. Gone without a trace. They searched until dusk. Then, the air got colder. Light snow began to fall down. Just like on the night Jacob's comrades met their end. They hightailed it down the mountain and into the valley. They made it into the middle of the valley and made camp for the night. Then storm came down from the mountain and into the valley just like last time. Just like the night when Jacob lost his comrades. It got colder and colder in the valley, as the storm continued to barrel down from the mountain. That night, Jacob and the men saw something that they could not quite believe. They saw lights, wandering upon the blizzarding mountainside. They watched from their individual tents throughout the night, as one by one the wandering lights went out. Jacob knew that it must be the spirits of his friends. Jacob wondered why he only saw 10 lights when it was 11 of his friends that disappeared up on the mountainside. Had one survived? Could one of his friends still be alive? Somewhere, lost out there in the wilderness? Where was the lost light up on the high? Answers came in the morning. Answers of where the lost light went. When Jacob awoke in the morning, the storm had cleared. Jacob and the 9 other men stepped out of their tents. 9 other men. 10 men had died from the cold that night. They must have died one by one in the night, succumbing to the cold. One by one, the 10 men's lives, snuffed out by the cold. Snuffed out like the 10 lights up on the mountainside. Chapter 2, Part 1. And now /x/ it is time to share my personal experience with the lost lights. Be me. 35. Have 3 teenage boys. Decide to go hiking with my sons, my buddy, and his 2 sons. We drive out to the edge of the wilderness at 4 a.m., park the car and start hiking at 4:30. We hike all day, only stopping at noon shortly for a quick lunch. We are walking at a decent pace. We reach the middle of a valley in the evening. We decide to camp there for the night. We ate a quick dinner and everyone went to sleep pretty quick after that from being tired from the hiking. Everyone went to bed but me. I decided to stay up and drink some beers and chillax in a fold-up chair I brought. I sat there staring at the sun that just set behind the mountain range. It got pretty cold after the sun set. Put on my jacket. Then, the fireflies came out. They danced slowly across the shape of the mountain. These fireflies were pretty weird. They didn't leave the shape of the mountain, and they didn't flash like normal fireflies. Then it hits me. Holy shit, oh fuck. JPG. Immediately get the fuck up and wake everyone. Tell them to pack their shit, and we gotta move now. My buddy asks, what's wrong? What happened? Me, I saw them. Buddy, saw what? Me, the lost lights. Buddy looks over my shoulder and sees the lights on the mountainside. He then notices how cold it has gotten. Buddy rushes to pack everything up with the kids. We hike back as fast as we can. The boys had overheard what me and my buddy were saying. Dad, what is the lost lights? Why are we leaving right now? Can't we leave in the morning? No, I said, and I proceeded to tell them the story of the lost lights while hiking back. At around 2:30 a.m. we managed to get back to the car, and we hightailed it out of there. I drop my buddy off and me and my kids go home. I woke up at noon, found out from the weather station there was a huge snowstorm that swept the valley we were in last night. Here comes the really scary part /x/. I saw 7 lights up on the mountainside. There were 7 of us on the trip. And that /x/ is my experience with the lost lights.
It wasn't anything spooky, just weird. Be me, about 17. Frequently go on hikes because I love the woods. Live in woodland area in northeast USA. Go off of trail next to the small river because I want to explore. There are old structures around that look like chimneys. People in the area say they were for brick firing or something like that. but no one uses them now. Keep walking into the woods up a hill. See small animal claw stuck in the side of a tree. Not really noticeable at first and not sure what kind of animal, maybe like a squirrel or raccoon. Looks like the rest of the animal just got ripped off somehow. Not really spooked, think it's weird. Keep hiking and eventually get back to the river/trail. I've also seen birds' legs attached to smaller tree branches like something just ripped the rest of the bird away. I wonder if this is like a hawk swoops down and the animal holds on too hard.
Few weeks ago. At night, going downstairs to get a drink. Cat follows me, sit down and pet him next to closed living room door. Hear the distinct sound of someone grabbing but not turning the door handle. Sit perfectly still, sound repeats a few more times and the handle seems to jerk slightly. Nope, the fuck back upstairs. Probably nothing but creeped me the fuck out at the time.
Be me in 2017. With GF at her home, a little bit of context, this is southern part of Mexico. On the rooftop just chilling, about 1 a.m. suddenly start hearing a woman moaning and crying. Sounds like it's coming from down the road and getting louder as it were coming closer. We both notice and shut up to hear. GF says we get down there, she could be hurt or in trouble. Nope.jpg. Stop her, something seems off about the crying, can't describe it, but it felt unearthly. Pointed out to her, she thinks him being paranoid. Moaning and crying getting more intense. Say fuck it, what if it's actually someone needing help? We run down the stairs. We get to the front door when the crying sounds like it's coming from just behind the door. Now the sound is so close, we now notice sounds of footsteps and chains being dragged. Knees weak, arms are heavy.jpg. We decide to look out the window first. There is nothing outside. Crying, footsteps and chains as clear as ever. WTF.png. They start fading down as if whatever these sounds were now making their way down the street. We finally step outside into the middle of the street. Nothing to be seen at any direction. Sounds completely fade. GF starts to believe me about what I said earlier about the sounds sounding not from this world. We go back in and not talk about this to anyone else. This is the only time to have heard these sounds since. There is a popular Mexican urban legend about La Llorona, or roughly translated the weeping woman or crying woman, a woman that drowned her children, regrets it and kills herself, and now spends the afterlife looking for her children. I did not believe this to be true until that day, where I believe we heard the infamous Llorona. Ever since that event I love hearing stories about other people's encounters with La Llorona, knowing that what they say has a very good chance of it being real.
I went hiking with a friend Central Florida this one time and had a surreal experience that made this dude not ever want to hike with me again. Be me. 25. Meet up with outdoor bro. Call him Brad. Brad's one of those minimalist kinda guys. Brings an alpaca blanket, some beers, weed, first aid, small knife, the usual. I have cookery, hammock, water bladder, canteen, also first aid, some beers, weed, and a little more kit that's irrelevant. Brad has some years on me, but we vibe pretty well. He's a free spirit and I'm some sort of abomination human. People like Brad are cool emo. Most of the time I hike alone on purpose, never any spooks except one time where I crossed paths with a pig. This time we're somewhere southeast of Orlando. Terrain is mixed. Inside tree line is solid ground with stable footing. Open ground is grass/bog. Trees grow in patches, so have to cross bog to get to next tree line. Not too bad, he may have had worse times in similar environments. No seums fucking everywhere. Don the mosquito nets. Takes half hour to cross, maybe 20 yards. Get to treeline with Brad and decide to go to the center and set up a temp camp and chill out. We get to the center and drop our packs to begin the good work. Some guy yells at us. Hey, power spin toward the voice. Can't see shit other than brush and oaks. Brad speaks out in a I don't give a fuck tone. Who's there? Brad's a big dude, like 6 feet 7 inches, plays basketball, works as one of those big nurses in hospitals that do the heavy lifting. Real gentle soul though. Engage hypervigilance from abusive upbringing. Listen to every noise and autistically scan with peripheral vision. Absolutely still. Voice responds. Just wanted to let you guys know I'm out here too. What a nice guy. Brad invites him over. Nah, that's alright brother, I've got a nice thing set up over. You wanna come check it out? By this point I'm sketched, people do not get the drop on me in the woods, I avoid them all the time, I figured this guy was living out here and we pissed him off. I look at Brad. Fuck it, let's go. Go with Brad into the brush. Walk through thicket of palmetto, small oaks, weird vines, and crowded pines. Make it to a clearing. Hey. All the debris in a 10 feet diameter is gone, just bare ground. Dude in a coat with a big hat is sitting on other side of cleared ground. Brad says what the fuck. Heart is pounding. Feel evil or fear, can't rationalize this dude just sitting out here with no camp. He's just staring at the ground, the edge of his hat blocking his face. He looks up and sort of stretches, like he stretched as anyone else would, but he didn't stand up while doing so and we get a whole view of this dude's body. It's covered in paint or something like it. His entire face was oily / shiny black and there was white and red paint all over him in designs. He was wearing this really long coat that was made of jute or burlap, something cheap, and it was gross. His eyes were so alive, like he was absolutely thrilled we were there, looking between the both of us in excitement. Raises a gourd in our direction. There's a cork in it and it has white designs painted on it. You guys want some juice? No thanks, guy. His face doesn't change. How about this juice? He holds up another gourd in his other hand. Ask him what kind of juice it is. Magic juice. Oh okay. PNG. Brad asks where he got all the gourds from. I look up. Realize my awareness is shit. Gourds hanging in all the tree and shrubs. Some are birdhouses, some have corks, others are broken, some rotting. All have white painted designs on them. I am become nope.rar, I'm not gonna green text this anymore. The guy is just looking at us and holding 2 gourds up. We both decline and ask him what's up, if he's alright or injured. He keeps asking us if want some juice and we keep declining. Trying to figure if we should and set up elsewhere or head back to the cars and call somebody, and he freaks out, throwing like a temper tantrum, slamming one of the gourds into the ground where it just indented into the sand. He started to rock his shoulders where he sat and I noticed he had ropes wrapping around him and his coat real tight, and behind him was all the debris that had been on the ground piled in a massive mound, and he was sitting right in front, almost in it. I asked him if he was stuck and he started crying, and waving his head back and forth, asking us why we didn't want any juice in this dejected voice. I asked, "Are you alright?" and he said he wanted his gourd back and that he couldn't reach it. Brad asked why he couldn't reach it, and the man made high-pitched squeal before lowering his head and sobbing, like ugly sobbing. Brad said fuck it again that day, picked up the gourd and went to the man. Bad decision on Brad's part. When Brad got close enough to the dude, he said, "Here's your gourd," and the dude grabbed Brad's arm and started pulling on him, screaming, "Drink it. Kumoun, drink it." He couldn't pull Brad, but Brad was having a hard time getting away and yelled the guy was tied to something and didn't want to hurt him. At no point in this moment was my giant friend in danger, I think, but I thought the opposite at the time. So I run up and fucking kicked this guy in the chest and he's as solid as a rock. He lets go of Brad and grabs my legs, knocking me on my back. I remember falling back in slow-mo, watching his face absolutely light up, with the biggest, widest smile I had ever seen and eyes to match. I got a good look at his body paint. It was these weird white lines swirling around in curves, these red semi and quarter circles. The white paint was similar to what was on the gourds. He pulls my ass right up against whatever thing he's sitting on and pins my thighs to it with his legs. Dude smelled like ass. He was looking at me with a fever or something, it bothered me and he had me. I thought Brad had died and I was about to get fucked. Crack. Brad beamed this dude in the head with a full gourd, pulled me away and then fell over. He kept saying he just had to calm down and breathe, calm down and breathe. Over and over, I was trying to help him chill out while also gathering myself, and Gourdbro starts fucking yelling at us about the goddamn juice again, like he's so goddamn frustrated about it and whatever the fuck he's tied to. Like he keeps trying to get up, but he's not going anywhere, stomping his feet and slapping his legs. Absolute toddler fit. I got up and went around him and jumped back when he tried to grab at me. I got behind him and the pile and the rope was coming out of the pile. I started moving the stuff out of the way and dude just started roaring like the devil, get away from there, scared my bowels empty right there in GL. I brushed enough to see a smooth black surface with those red broken circles on it. I saw the same ropes coming out of the bottom of it as well, going up into the trees where the gourds were growing / hanging, and some more that went off under the surrounding debris when Brad yelled, "What the fuck is that?" pointing to some kind of vines approaching at a slow, steady, straightforward path towards the center of the clearing. I had too much at that point and I think Brad agreed because we both booked it to the sound of that guy wailing for us to come back, with the last thing I heard him yelling was "please," in the loud roaring voice from before. We ran, crawled, scooted, scuttled, squatted, and moved in any other manner necessary to get through the brush, which was thicker than I remember it being. There were also gourds everywhere, but not with the white paint, but with the black and red paint. Those are what kept us moving so fast. It took way too long to get back to our gear, but it was there just as we left it. Didn't hear the man anymore. Brad later said he liked hanging out with me, but that ever since he met me weird shit would happen too often in his life. I still don't know what he meant by that, because that was the penultimate strangest thing that has ever happened to me and nothing like that has ever happened again. People do say that to me a lot though. I've always been called strange and even my own parents see me in a different light than my siblings. I don't know what any of this is, I just try to accept it as it comes.
I don't know if this is particularly scary or anything, but it was a very unsettling thing that I still think about sometimes. Be me, formerly massive bonghead. Live in a relatively small town. Would pick up weed at any hour of the day, sometimes at daytime, or in the very early dark hours of the morning when needed. Awake at 3 a.m., sober, can't sleep, sitting in bed on my phone. Get message. "Hey man, sorry I didn't reply earlier, I just got home, if you still need to pick up." Dealer lives on the other side of town and I can't really be fucked walking, but getting high is the only way I'm gonna go to sleep. Fuck it. Yeah man, heading your way now, I'll message when I'm out front. Get up, put jacket and shoes on and open my front door, trying not to wake my mom up. Unusually foggy outside, more so than I'd ever seen on any of my hundreds of walks to pick up. Start walking down my driveway. Look down the street. It's so foggy I can only see about 50 meters ahead. Streets are completely empty, no lights on in houses. See dull streetlights on the road to the main street through the fog. Begin my journey. About 45 minutes later I get to his house and start heading back with the weed in my pocket. Paranoid of police, as patrols had picked up due to spike in robberies at the time. Speed walking through the main street. Get to a street near mine, walking past typical suburban houses. See my estate in sight. Suddenly see someone emerge from the fog walking towards me fairly far ahead. Not walking on the path, but in the middle of the road in the darkness. As they get closer, notice that they are walking very strangely. Not like drunk, but almost uncoordinated. Preparing to have to fight junkie.png. Keep walking down the path cause I don't want to look like a pussy. Get to roundabout pathway where I am plainly visible in the street lights. Guy only 10 meters away still walking in the middle of the road. He walks over the roundabout island, I can see that he is wearing all black and looks dirty. Looking at me, but it's too dark to see his face. He is still walking in the direction opposite to me, so I figure he's not going to do anything. I look straight and keep walking. Suddenly hear, "Why aren't you running?" in a really hoarse voice. Turn around, he's standing in the middle of the road facing me. Still can't see his face. Reply, "What?" while still walking. No reply. Keep fucking speed walking. Get to the corner of my street about 100 meters ahead. Turn around. See his silhouette in the lights at the roundabout, still standing looking straight at me. Start walking down my street. Turn around again. He's fucking sprinting down the road toward me in a very unnatural way. Fucking full speed run to my house. Get to my house, look behind me, can't see him on the street anymore. Don't know if he stopped following me or if it's too foggy to see him down the road. Get in, lock the door. Paranoid walking down the street in the early morning ever since. No fucking weed was smoked outside that night.
Just finished reading some stories from Op. Man, Africa is fucking wild. I have some stories from my childhood and stuff. Here's one that has a lot more if people are interested. Be me, about 3 years old. Sunday night in September, probably Labor Day weekend. Remember that detail specifically, weirdly. Finish brushing teeth and get tucked into bed. Fast forward about 2 hours, parents sleeping. But I can't, of course. Always looked out my window, every night the orange light from the street lamp would shine a bit into my room. Lamp does its thing, stare and ponder for a bit. Turn over, ready for sleepy time. Not today fucker.jpg. Massive shadow, but enough to be a person, fades onto my wall by the window and crawls along until it's on my bed, Spider-Man style. Scared shitless when first saw it, watched it under blanket. Silence, but we both know the other is there. Thinking about if I'm gonna die or not. Start praying to God in my head. Our Father. Move. Doesn't leave, get more scared. Stops moving, like an animal that knows something bigger is there and quickly goes away, doesn't even drag the blanket. Then it's gone. Tell parents next day. Oh, it was just a dream, blah blah blah. Don't believe it. Still remember it vividly to this day. And ol' Shadow Boy from memory isn't done with me. Will continue if asked. Still get nervous whenever I remember that. Alright, ill can't. Be me, about 7-ish years later. 10, in new house. Playing in the basement/downstairs area on my PS3 or Wii. Remember that it was either Sonic Adventure or Smash. Playing like usual, about noon I think. Suddenly feel a hot intense feeling inside me, like something from my core temperature or hot flash. Turn to the right. At cabinet from dead grandfathers, which we were given and had lots of glasses. See Shadow Boy again, this time more substantial, like it was half materialized and half wasn't. Scared shitless again, BPM through the roof. Silence again, even game is silent. We stare. He just fucking disappears. Like one moment Hess there, the next like he was never there to begin with. Tell mom, ask her to stay with me for a bit downstairs. Don't see him again for a while. I have one more Shadow Boy story and another set on something else that's pretty paranormal to me if anyone's interested. Alright, here's the last shadow story. Be me, teens. See shadow sometimes. Less menacing, more just watchful now. Still unsure about them. See them everywhere in random spots, sometimes they will just stand there, sometimes they will see and walk to somewhere else. Don't really care much anymore. Until one night I start having a dream I used to have as a kid. Hated this dream, always scared the shit out of me. Would be in a yellow room, and always seeing lots of books. The books would always have something unnerving about them, maybe what's written. Wake up in a sweat. Shadow Boy is there, on the right side of the room. He fades away. Haven't seen him since. Early 20s now, happened about 6 to 7 years back. That room in the dream always scares me even just thinking about it. There's more to the room if anyone wants to know.
I'd if this was a dream, but the memory of it is so persistent and some part of me just screams that it isn't. Me, 3 years old. Nanny, who lives with us, wakes me up in the middle of the night and leads me to the living room. We stand in front of the TV, which is flanked by a stuffed bear and a Garfield plush backpack. Their eyes light up red and they speak to me. I remember conversing with them for a while, but for the life of me I can't remember anything we talked about. Their voices sounded aged and modulated. I think she did this to prove to me that she deals with the supernatural, because of my disbelief when she first told me. The light leaves their eyes and my nanny tells me never to tell my parents. She tells me to go back to sleep and I do. We moved out a couple months later and went back to her hometown to retire. We got rid of the bear at some point, but the backpack stayed with us for a little longer. For some reason I just never got even a hint of fear from remembering that event, as opposed to recalling some of my more vivid nightmares from my childhood.
That was about a year ago. I only have a very few paranormal or strange incidents to talk about. This happened when I was a lot younger, about 6. Living in the house I grew up in. Bed is against a wall with a window and curtains, with the door out to the hallway on the opposite side. I'd often imagine things before I went to sleep, like think about if I had superpowers and shit like that. Imagination time is over, time to sleep. Laying on my back with my eyes closed. Suddenly hear a loud unnatural scream from outside the window. Not right outside the window, but it sounded like it was in the backyard. Paralyzed in fear, thinking if I move whatever it was might hear me. Silence for about 10 minutes. Suddenly hear a few taps on the window. Thinking about yelling out for my parents, but I'm too scared to. More silence. Then I hear streaking on the window, like someone was standing at my window running their hand up and down it. Get up, sprint to my parents' room, tell them. Mom sits in my room for a few minutes and we don't hear it again. Tells me it was probably a possum or something and goes back to bed. Lying in bed about half an hour later. Hear another strange sound outside. Sounds like someone is breathing up against my window. Wake my parents up again. Dad goes outside with a torch, finds nothing. Comes back inside. End up sleeping in their room for the night. This is the only other strange story I have, happened in the same house. Be around 8. Have 2 of my best friends over. Spend the day skateboarding and watching TV and shit. Comes around to bedtime. Staying in my brother's old room from before he moved out. I was sleeping on a mattress in the middle of the floor, and my friends were on mattresses beside mine. We talk for a few hours, then once we are all tired we go to sleep. Sleeping.webm. Suddenly wake up. The light is on. Look at my friends, they both woke up to it as well. Ask if one of them turned the light on. No. Don't think too much of it, go back to sleep. Wake up in the morning. One of my friends looks wrecked, tired but wide-eyed. Told me he hadn't slept after I turned the light off. There was someone in the closet watching us and they told me not to wake you up. Look in the closet. One side is filled with storage shit. The other side is completely empty. Friends get picked up later that day. He never stayed at my house again after that night. Till this day not sure what to make of what he said, but I know for sure that we all woke up to the light being on, and my parents' bedroom is on the other side of the house, so if it was one of them, we would have heard them walk down the hallway. We never really talked about it that much after that night, I don't think he wanted to. Lost contact with those friends once my parents broke up, all I know is I'm fucking glad they did. Fuck that house.
Wake up with the window by the side of my bed open. Why is my window open? WTF. Slump towards it to close it, as a white hand grasps my arm from the other side of the curtain. I suddenly wake up. Just a dream. Awake now, I get up to do some chores, and am taking the trash out. Look down the street, see a white figure run across my neighbor's yard. Wake up again. Oh fuck, I just dreamt I had actually woken up, now I'm actually awake. Window by the side of my bed open.
GA fag here. I feel like most of these are bullshit spook writers, so I'll share the only strange thing I've ever seen. Be me around 12 years old. Trespass fishing with my dad at Lake Lanier. Get bored and wander down the shore to look for crawfish or anything I can find under a rock. Come to a shallow stretch of water that goes pretty far off of the shore, about 20 feet or so. Water consistently shin deep, and I can clearly see where the water gets too deep to fuck with. Flat rocks everywhere and a small island about 10 feet off the shore. It's about 5 feet long and a foot or so out of the water. It's got a little grass but no critters, so I don't give a fuck. I start slowly flipping rocks close to the shore and make my way out. Eventually get to a large rock near the island, and halfway through flipping the rock the island starts to move. I take a step back and watch this thing bob and slide towards deeper water. It's barely kicking up silt as it moves, and I flip out. Run back to the shore and watch it disappear into deeper water while yelling for my dad. It breaks into a few pieces and dissolves, but I can clearly see a trail of mud leading away from it and into the deep water like something swam out of it. Dad shows up annoyed as fuck, and I show him the trail and silt clouds. It was just a turtle, anon. I still debate this with him to this day. I fucking love turts and didn't see a head, legs, or even signs of swimming with this thing. Honestly, haven't swam in a lake since.
I have a similar story, but I need to explain the location a little. Grandma's house has reputation for spooks. 2-story house. Second floor is used for storage since it's too spooky for us. Notable events are a truck pulling up the driveway, then magically gone without a sound when you walk 5 feet from the window to the door. Seeing figures atop the staircase. Children playing with an unseen little girl named Leslie. Objects moving while you're looking at them. My stories are 1. Be me, 5 years old. Hanging out in bedroom, watching cartoons. Grandpa has clown doll collection for some reason, thought it was normal at the time. One of these dolls is a clown sitting on a swing, which he has hung up on the inside of the bedroom window. Sister and I hear a light tapping on window. Look over, clown is slowly swinging back and forth. Sleep in a different room. 2. Be me, 7. Chilling with sister, doing same as last story. Grandma making mac and cheese. Goddamn, I love mac and cheese. Grandpa in living room watching Law and Order or something. Blanket is slightly off the bed, laying on the floor. Coming back from the kitchen after getting a drink. Step at edge of bed where blanket covers floor. Distinctly feel a hand under my foot, I can feel individual fingers. It silently jerks under the bed when I step on it. Promptly shit bricks. Slowly look under bed, sister staring at me with fear. Nothing under the bed except some shoeboxes. 3. The one that actually resembles your story. Be me, 15. Looking around upstairs because some of my childhood stuff is up there and nostalgia. Walk into upstairs bedroom. The bedroom has its own small bathroom, look towards it because the door is open. Clown/jester music box is sitting on top of a pile of boxes facing towards me. I make eye contact, then it starts playing. Think holy shit, take it home so it doesn't get damaged while being stored up there. It still occasionally turns on by itself without me winding it up for months. You guys are gonna think this is boring, but this is still the creepiest shit that's ever happened to me. Be me. Like 12 or 13 at the time. I used to sleep in the basement, meaning it was dark as shit 24/7. Near to where I slept it's a chair that I would use for vidya, and it had uneven legs so it would rock back and forth while you were sitting on it, making a distinct sound. One morning I open my eyes, Sleeping on a couch and facing inward so I can't see anything. Slowly come to the realization that I hear something. Hear the distinct thunk of the chair shifting its legs. Oh, maybe my cat's up there. The noise keeps going, as in the chair keeps shifting its weight back and forth. Try to keep cool and pretend that I'm asleep. After what felt like hours, the noise stops and I dart upstairs like a pussy. Cat is asleep upstairs. Entire family is asleep. I was the only person in the basement. I still wonder what the fuck that was.
Back from a little day trip. Man, it's neat to see how much this thread has been booming. Got some more shit for you guys. Be me. Back when I lived in Africa. Family is devout Christian. For some reason, we meet up with a woman who claims to be a former witch/shaman. She tells us some stories from her past. Not sure what to believe at that point, but was more open-minded due to my previous experiences. Tells us that she used to curse people and worship demons. Would sometimes help people, but mostly just ruined people's lives if they pissed her off. Claims to have bound demons to people, and given them terrible diseases. But one of her stories was just a little too real, to just be discarded as fiction. She told how albino people had certain magical properties, and so they were very sought after on the black market of the shaman world. One day, an albino boy was born in one of the villages outside of Ndola, and was hidden away by the family. Someone exposed them though, which ended in the kidnapping of the infant. She recalls that she got a message from one of her associates about some potent stuff for her practitioners. She used a lot of outlandish terms, that I don't recall, so bear with me. She arrived at the spot where she met several other shamans, all gathered around a bunch of coolers. They had fucking killed and parted the poor baby, slicing the boy up in several pieces that apparently were potent AF and curses and stuff. That was when she reached her limit and changed her ways. Like I said, it's a fucked continent. As some of you might have guessed, I have always been drawn to supernatural shit. And it just so happens that supernatural shit wants to be seen. I believe that if you truly want to experience something fucked or unnatural, you'll get your wish. Be me. A few months ago. Live in a small village-sized town in the middle of nowhere. About 600 people living there, with only one grocery store. Always view it as a boring, sleepy little shithole. Go for a walk in the woods. Decide to go off the beaten path for a bit, and explore. Come across something strange. Find some weird tome or something hanging from a tree, along with some sketchy symbols carved into a trunk. Both are pick related. Honestly don't know what to make of it at first, since it just seems too cliché. Think it's just kids playing a prank. But why TF would they place it so far off from the path? Kinda forget about it after a day or two. Read the local newspaper, yeah, do that. Sue me. A couple of kids had been playing in the woods, when they found the bloody head of a fucking goat placed on a tree stump. Police were notified, and found evidence of cult-like activities. Just my luck. A week or so goes by, and I decide to do some urban exploration, at this abandoned mansion that lay about 3 or 4 miles away from shithole town. Take one of my friends with me, we'll call him Marcus. Doesn't take us long to find the place. Fucking huge. Everything's busted to absolute shit. Spend a few minutes just walking around inside, checking for cool shit. Get to the kitchen. Fucking hell, there's a pool of thick, dark red liquid. Please be fucking barbecue sauce. Zip. See a trail leading to a door. Marcus is very hesitant, but follows me to the door. Open it. It leads to the goddamn basement. No way I'm going down there. Marcus tries acting tough, and is about to take a step down the stairs when we hear a noise. Sounds like someone stumbling over a cardboard box, both frozen in fear, not daring to make the slightest move. A few seconds pass. Suddenly hear what sounds like someone hauling ass towards the stairs. We book it out of there while cursing and panicking. As we reach the front door, we hear the fucker run up the stairs. Get in the car and speed off. Neither of us looked back. I could swear I took some photos of the blood, but I can't find them. I'll post them if I do.
Not really that scary and probs just caused by exhaustion, but anyhow. Me, 18, in boot camp, figured to get military service done ASAP. Have an exercise in a training area in the woods, about 40 km. Bike there from morning till afternoon, then after lunch start the actual exercises, fire and movement stuff mostly. I think, first with blanks then with live bullets. I was a skinny fat who never exercised, so this pretty much sucked me dry. Yes, I'm a faggot. Started working out since though. Finally night comes and it's time to set up camp and get some sleep. Hey Anon, you got first watch? Fuck, I just wanted to sleep. Jav. Lie in the foxhole watching the perimeter, eating some yogurt or something, bored AF. About 45 minutes go without anything. Think I see some movement against the blue night sky from the corner of my eye. It was summer above the Arctic Circle, and no clouds, it was bright as hell. Oh fuck, it's prob a drill sergeant or something. Eyes fucking peeled, scan the horizon, see nothing for 5 minutes. Until some sort of humanoid shape seems to start dancing against the horizon. WTF. Then it just disappears. Like, I'm staring at it and then it just isn't there. Figure I was just way too tired or something. Oh well, at least I'll get to bed soon. The new guy comes and relieves me, crash into my sleeping bag and sleep. After I thought about it, I think it might have been a hallucination or a forest spirit or gnome doing forest spirit / gnome shit.
Me. Be like 4 to 6. Get new bedroom decorated so I don't have to share with grandma. Spare bedroom at back of house. Sleep there for one night. Wake up sweating profusely and standing on my bed with parents there. Anon, what's wrong? You were screaming. Freak the fuck out every time they try to take me back in there. Still refuse to enter it to this day. I am 22. I also saw an apparition of a girl with some severe facial deformity in there around 12 years old and have seen the door move by itself. I have recurring nightmares, that feel real, about going to the toilet next to that room, exiting, and being grabbed by a blue girl with an edematous face who can't breathe.
Okay, this isn't really scary, but it's fucking weird. Be like 12 or 13. Dad is a pilot and owns a 172. Me and him as well as his friends in their plane fly from SoCal to Idaho. The place we flew to is Moose Creek, which is a grass landing strip with a ranger station, that's it. We camp there and fish for a day. Next day 2 fishermen fly in during the morning. Don't see them for a while, sitting around at camp. Suddenly wind picks up, clouds come in and a microburst occurs. See 2 fishermen running to their plane. Dad remarks on it not being a good time to take off. 2 dudes taxi anyway. Runway is an X, we are in the middle of the 2 runways, so the plane taking off isn't visible directly from camp. Decide to watch guy take off. By the time we get to the edge of the tree line, he is already partially down the grass strip. Suddenly wind blows hard and pushes plane straight into the ground. Side note, I can't really remember if I saw the lane crash or was described it, but it doesn't matter. After plane crashes it bursts into flame. Distinctly remember me, my dad, and his friends looking over at the wreckage. Can hear one of the guys screaming help over and over again. It's echoing through the valley. In the position we're in, the plane is still pretty far away. My dad makes me go back to the tents. Distinctly remember that neither my dad or his friends attempt to get close to plane or help the guy who got out. The guy that got out was burned pretty bad, but he went to the ranger station. Pilot burned to death in plane. Still don't know why none of us helped.
Be young me in late grade school, most likely 5th grade. This how I met James. No real names were used in the making of this .jpg. Family moves in few houses down from my buddy's house. Wife and husband with 2 kids. One is James. Never see James go outside. Parents have loud fights. Sometimes see James helping parents with yard work. Mostly his dad. Waits at screen door every day. We would ride our bikes around the neighborhood every day after, and this kid would stand at the screen door every day waiting for his dad. Never even noticed us riding by, just stared at the driveway. Forget about James. One day at Buddy Keith's house. Hear James' mom yell and shriek/yell/roar, "What is wrong with you? Give me him now." It scared me a little. Hear James' mom drive the fuck off. Have more. We hung out a lot after he got older and started going to school. He would hang out with Keith and we'd just play video games and talk. He was super interesting when he was comfortable, but it took a long time for him to warm up to people, and as we got older he isolated himself more. He was by no means slow, but like hindered. This kid had to obey, and I'll get to that in a bit. I have to get to it, 'cause I remember when it all made sense. More after this post. James' dad lives alone in the house now. Hear him yelling on phone every day. Drives a gross station wagon. One weekend see James and sis with dad. Both are crying and dad looks scary pissed. Happens a few times over a couple months. Sleeping over at Keith's house. Hear James' sister start crying. I was in grade school, these kids were young. James was like 5 and his was 2 or 3. Hear the dad fucking wail, "You don't love me, none of you love me. If you love me you're supposed to be good." Keith's dad gets up. Yells "Goddammit" and comes into Keith's room. This man chained expletives at our young minds, so profane to me in my innocence I was shook. Says he's tired of listening to this dude yell all the time. I had no idea. PNG. Then one day James' mom took the house and the dad moved next door, which turned the whole street up to 11. Constant police calls. Because James wouldn't want to do visitation, so the dad called the police on him. Keith's dad is consistently dumbfounded by this, never shuts up about the neighbors. Police leave, dad goes back next door. Hour later see James leave mom's house crying and goes next door. Hear James' dad yell at him for a while. Hear fury that hell hath none liketh. Mama James destroys the sound barrier coming out her front door screaming like an animal. Slams on dad's front door. Leaves with James. There's so much more. Especially once his mom got a restraining order on the dad. These stories will become second-hand stories that James told me. If you're still interested, one day there's a full-on police investigation at James' house. Someone keyed James' mom's car and her family's cars. Also slashed tires. Also nails in tires. Also graffiti on cars. James' dad moves away after this. Found out later from the mom and James the dad was stalking the whole family and making death threats to the mom's parents and siblings for helping her. Apparently this dude is super religious bigot schizo-level Christian with a god complex second to none and the speech capabilities of a seasoned corporate psychopath. Considers himself a Christian prophet. Anyways. One day doing the usual, chilling with Keith in his backyard. Had a cool, secluded backyard with a massive sand pit for digging. We'd dig that bitch deep and then drink off-brand cola. See James just sitting across the street from us. Just fucking staring. Say hey, what's up? He runs the fuck away. Okay. Life resumes. One day go to Keith's. James is there. He seems really happy. We talk about stuff, but what I don't remember. Dude struggled with boundaries, this made Keith's high-strung dad even more high-strung. Make new friend. Teach him all sorts of cool stuff. Show him Godzilla. TFW, you introduce someone to something that they immediately fall in love with forever and always. TFW, I understand Frankenstein. James comes over one day super excited. Dad got him a Godzilla movie, tells me he wants to bring it over so we can watch it together. Okay, cool. The next day a knock on the door. It's James. He's trying super hard not to cry. His dad is sitting in a station wagon outside. Tells me he's sorry for lying and can't bring the movie over. Tell him it's okay and not to worry about it. He just stands there not saying anything, just looking at me, still trying not to cry. I am trash. Should have invited him in or something. Say I have to go. He leaves with his dad. I have returned with more tales, this one from James. Be freshman in high school at the time. James the first think in middle school. Be chillin' at house. Playing Monster Hunter on the PS2. James turned me onto it, bought him an internet adapter so we could play online together. James comes over and he's got huge bags under his eyes. I let him in and he talks a bit before we both stop talking and he watches me solo a Rathalos. Feelin' pretty cool. James had a hard time with those guys. He asks a mumbled question. Speak up, laddie. Asks me if my dad ever bought me a gift that wasn't for me. WTF. What do you mean? Tells me his dad had him for visitation. Dad calls him out to garage with his stepbrother. Dad tells James he got him a new bike and shows him the Rockin' Mongoose bike. James always wanted one because Keith always had one and James thought Keith was cool AF. James said he thought it was the coolest gift his dad ever got him. Tells me his old man only ever buys James fishing tackle. It was never for James. Sadface. James' dad only ever buys gifts for himself and uses James as an excuse for it. Says to me his dad gets angry at him for not liking fishing tackle and tools. Says he's looking at the bike and is so glad it's not fishing tackle. He chokes back a sob. His dad tells him just kidding. The bike's really for his stepbrother. If James wants a nice bike he needs to visit more. Kid starts sobbing, but just stops. Like stone cold dead-eyed, stops crying. Says sorry and leaves. I call him later and tell him to play Monster Hunter with me. We play Monster Hunter all fucking night on the phone. Get yelled at by parents for being on the phone for 8 hours straight. Absolutely worth it. Gave me depression thinking about it. One time I went James' dad's house. James' 9th or 10th BA. His dad personally invited me. Thought it was weird that James had never mentioned it all. Figure I'll go, get him a gift card. It is the day. Show up at his dad's house. Fucking big ass house with massive driveway. Yard is full of all the in vogue plants. Beautiful lawn. Proto-boomer alarm going off. Go inside, meet his own family. Dad's second wife was a nice lady. Her kids have high-level screeching abilities. James' sister is there being in charge of shit. Boatload of boys there of all ages. I had no idea James had so many friends. Find James. He's eating pizza with wide eyes on full alert. Hey dude, happy birthday. He looks at me just super stoked. Says he didn't know I was going to be there. Didn't you ask your dad to invite me? No, he just invited all these people here. James doesn't even know half these kids. Meet a few of James' other friends, but the dad has them all to himself telling stories. Dad notices me and tractor beams me into the group. Telling stories about how James is such a bad kid or shit about he was breastfed. Look at James. 1000-yard stare.jpg. When it was time for the kid to open presents, his dad got him a tackle box and then I watched this kid put on the most ecstatic "Thanks Dad, you're the best, I love you Terry's no better dad" routine I've ever seen. He opens other presents, we eat cake. Later hear the dad yelling at James. Sends James to his room and lets the party continue without James. Parents at party take issue with this. The dad loudly states that James called a girl a whore and was being punished and that if anyone wanted to teach James a lesson then they should stay. Party fucking dies, everybody leaves. I went and saw James after he went back to his mom's house, asked him WTF happened. Says 2 girls his dad invited wouldn't leave him alone. He just wanted to sit by himself. They told his dad he called them whores.
Poor kid got cucked by two brats. If only the father was better at knowing that his kid did not act like that and actually knew they were lying, the story would have ended better.
Oh, you don't understand. These girls knew the father would believe them because the father hated James. It didn't matter that they were lying. James killed himself a week before his 21st birthday by driving his car into an oak, sober and on purpose. He left voicemails on a bunch of people's phones crying, saying he didn't know what to do. A mutual friend told me she got a voicemail from him while she was performing in a concert and shared it with me. He sobbed and said, "I don't know what to do." His dad went around for months after that talking about how it was James' mom's fault for divorcing him. I learned from his sister. Their mom was always a nice lady, she worked hard and took care of everyone, total mother hen. No more James stories, I regret telling them now.
When my brother was about 2 or 3 years old, my parents rented an older house. My brother had his own room, but would never sleep in it. Anytime they tried to put him to bed, he would cry and scream. Eventually, as he tired from all the crying, he would fall asleep. The next morning my parents would find him sleeping in the hallway just outside the open door to his room. He slept fine by himself anywhere else in the house, just not in that room. This happened for weeks, and eventually my brother just ended up sleeping in my parents' bed at night. My mom was talking to a neighbor one day and mentioned that my brother would never sleep in his new room. The neighbor then mentioned that it was the same room that the previous owner committed suicide in. I know it sounds like a BS story, but it really happened. My parents moved to a new house a few weeks later. This was in the early 80s. My mom mentioned that the room was always colder than the rest, even though it had a large sun-facing window in it.
Be me. A little over 10 years ago. Living in Buckfuckistan, Oregon. Get back from late night of shopping with my mom. Helping her unload groceries from the car when I hear distant footsteps on asphalt. Turn to look down the street and see a figure dart across it. Despite them running directly under a streetlight, it only looks like the dark silhouette of a person. I almost shrug it off, but then I realize something off. Their legs are backwards, like their knees were inverted. The thing disappears just as quickly as it appeared. Have never mentioned anything to my mom, but the memory has stuck with me ever since.
Be me. Go out at night to meet a friend at the main station. Kinda drunk already, so I started kicking down trash cans down 'cause I'm a retard. Somehow someone heard or saw this, so they called police on me. Police catches me and puts on handcuffs. Says they will release me soon if I shut up. They talk for 2 minutes about useless shit. Ask one cop about one thing they were just talking about because I was curious. Okay, shut the fuck up, we're taking you to the station. They put me in an isolated cell with just a hard mattress. Chill there for a while, do push-ups. Start hearing spooky ass voices inside the cell. They are faint, but what they reminded me of is echoes of some asylum inmates' voices who could have been here in the past. Try to keep my shit cool. Piss on the floor to piss off the policeman who wasted my day with this bullshit and put me inside some Charles Manson soul dispenser cell with no lighting. Be there for 6 hours, slept for maybe 2 of it. Not spooky but weird.
Be me. In middle school, staying late to make up work I missed from the flu. It's winter time, so sun sets sorta early. Teacher is chill and helps me out with work. Finally finish up around 5 or 6 and it's nearing twilight. Teacher leaves classroom and heads off while I got to locker to grab jacket and lunchbox. Be the only one on the 3rd floor on in the south wing. Start making my way down hall towards the stairs. You have to turn a corner to reach the stairs. Hear a loud crash of stuff falling. WTF. Did I leave my locker open or did someone else? Shuffling noise of stuff on floor getting pushed around is very audible. Start approaching corner when a loud whispering voice says, "Leave." Turn the fuck around and leaves. Leaves through side exit at the base of stairs and feels eyes watching me from the third floor windows. I still have no clue WTF that was about. Be me. In middle school, staying late to make up work I missed from the flu. It's winter time, so sun sets sorta early. Teacher is chill and helps me out with work. Finally finish up around 5 or 6 and it's nearing twilight. Teacher leaves classroom and heads off while I got to locker to grab jacket and lunchbox. Be the only one on the third floor on in the south wing. Start making my way down hall towards the stairs. You have to turn a corner to reach the stairs. Hear a loud crash of stuff falling. WTF. Did I leave my locker open or did someone else? Shuffling noise of stuff on floor getting pushed around is very audible. Start approaching corner when a loud whispering voice says, "Leave." Turn the fuck around and leaves. Leaves through side exit at the base of stairs and feels eyes watching me from the third floor windows. I still have no clue WTF that was about.
Be me, about 16 years old. Live in coastal region in Texas, occasionally have to evacuate for hurricanes. See this as an inconvenience, as no hurricane had ever been worth evacuating over, until Harvey many years later. Begrudgingly evacuate with my mom and 2 dogs. Stepdad stays home as he is considered a first responder. Drive northwards until we can find a hotel with vacancy anywhere. End up in Temple, TX and finally find a hotel. Place was a dingy, 2 to 3 star pet-friendly hotel, but at least it wasn't a crackhead motel. Get dogs and stuff in room, read a book for a while before going to sleep. Wake up in the middle of the night from a super deep sleep to the sound of the hotel door opening. Realize there is a man walking in front of the 2 beds in the dark. Half asleep still, I say out loud, "Hello? What are you doing?" Man replies, "Wrong room," and leaves room quickly. Dogs wake up and start to growl/bark as he's leaving. Good job, guys. So tired I go back to sleep without really thinking much of it, realize only later how scary it was. Asked my mom about it the next morning. She saw him too and thought it was hotel employee, which it could have been. Wonder WTF a hotel employee is doing going into rooms at 3 to 4 a.m. Not super scary, but it was only later I realized how creepy the whole thing made me feel, and how I was so tired I didn't react like I should have. I definitely wasn't dreaming because my mom clearly remembers the incident. Still gives me the creeps though, as I thought we locked the hinge/chain lock thing.
This is from a couple months ago. For a whole month I was in a downward spiral of paranoia, feeling like I was being watched, along with stuff going missing, only to turn up a month later where I didn't put them. Be me, 16. Parents go out of town for a month for Ike bullshit party I can't go to because no valid passport. Long story, all's well for the first couple days. Gaming on PC one late night. Suddenly feel like I'm being watched. Shrug it off because I've always had that feeling. Go to bed. Wake up at around 4 a.m. WTF.jpg. Suddenly hear booming laughter from outside my door and the hallway leading to it. Nope. MP4. Grab large knife I have next to me. Get up and open the door. Preparing to fight. Nothing. Fucking nothing. Nearly piss my pants at this, knowing I'm alone. Shut door, relocking it. Keep lights on for rest of the night. Fast forwards a day. Get back from riding bike. Notice the USB for my keyboard is gone. Just gone. Search my entire room. It doesn't show. Think maybe I tossed it somewhere random and just used the cable. It's now 2 p.m, I'm just getting off my computer. Hear faint Morse code. Diffute.jpg. After 5 minutes, it stops. Shrug it off as hallucinations.
My mom told me this story happened when I was 3 years old. My mom, her nephew, and I were driving home to our apartment. It was around 5 or 6 at night. My mom said she stopped at a gas station to get gas. Nobody got out but her. She filled up the tank and off we went. A couple blocks down the road, her nephew says, "Where's my boot? I'm missing one of my boots." "What the hell, why did you take your boot off?" "It must be at the gas station." My mom thinks to herself, what the fuck? Nobody even opened a car door but me? Goes back to the gas station and lo and behold, how the hell is this boot sitting by the gas pump? My mom just could not figure out how the hell the boot was there. Drive home, get out, and what the fuck? Someone broke into our apartment. Till this day my mom thinks something made that boot get out of the car, because if not we would have been there when the break-in happened. Be me driving home with my roommate from GF house in TX. Rolling hills, so it's got lots of fog for whatever reason. See something white and large coming toward windshield, so flip on brights. Holy fuck, it's Batman.exe. Weird bat with fucked human face thing? Flies straight up before hitting my windshield. Wingspan was easily double the size of my car. Unsure if it was a large bird, but that face looked too fucked to be a bird. Roommate felt extremely nauseous after seeing it and said he'd never seen something so creepy.
Not supernatural, but pretty scary. Be me. Live in suburbia. Life is good but have no vehicle, so walk and bus everywhere. Near my neighborhood is a little spot of forest, probably about 3 square miles, with a bus stop right outside of it. As I'm waiting for the bus one day, I realize something new about the forest. There seems to be a kind of trail going into it, with grass beaten down from people walking on it and branches bent just enough to let a person pass through. Feel curious and want to explore it, but also feel a sense of ominous dread about it, like I should stay away or something bad will happen. Decide to stay away from it and forget about it. Hear later from some friends that this trail apparently leads to a homeless encampment. Sometime later, apparently just outside this forest on a grassy field, a woman was found murdered and her body severed into pieces. Decide it was a good idea I never explored that forest after all.
Alright/x/, I've got a hell of a story. I'm not a very supernaturally inclined person, and have always shied away from anything to do with ghosts, spirits, etc., but to this day I can't really. Camping on the eastern coast of Australia around Christmas a couple of years ago. In a shitty old 4WD with my parents and sister. It was getting towards evening and we'd been driving for a couple of hours, with a particular destination in mind to camp for the night. We get to the turnoff for the national park where we were gonna camp. When we get to the camping ground, it is absolutely packed. Like, sardine level. I guess that because we were in that Christmas, New Year period, a lot of people were out and about. Needless to say, we were gonna need to find another place to sleep. We start to drive back along the dirt road towards the highway, a little disheartened as we didn't know any alternative spots to sleep nearby. We suddenly notice another road leading off of the one we were on. I can't remember if we noticed it on the way down, but we noticed it now. Still had probably an hour of light, so we decided we'd drive down it for a while and see if it led to anywhere we could pitch a tent. It's pretty badly maintained, full of divots and shit, but the car seems to be handling it. We follow this road for a fair while before we end up in a little clearing besides the bank of this broad tidal river. It's really beautiful, but there's no grass, so we decide to keep looking. We notice that there are several roads departing from the clearing, besides the one we entered it by. We pick one and start to drive down it. Night is encroaching quite rapidly. I'd say that by this point we had maybe 45 minutes of light left to find somewhere. We drive and drive, through what seems like a maze of shitty dirt roads, before we end up at this weird little car park. We seem to be at the top of some sort of hill, and a small walking track that began at the car park lead down into the forest. We decide to scout it out, hoping that we might get lucky. After about a minute or two on this track, Suddenly we emerge from the trees and are looking down into this absolutely fucking picturesque camping spot. The ground where we were standing sloped gently down to form this beautiful little gully, covered with short grass. It was really small, basically the perfect size for a couple of tents. To the left, a path between some rocky ridges led directly to the beach, which can't have been more than 25 meters away. To the right, the crease of the valley continued, with the grass giving way to some low-lying those do tend to stare. It wasn't out of the ordinary. We walked out to the beach, and then back, across the grass, into the trees. We were having a bit of a look around, and we ended up finding this little pool of tepid water, we call it a billabong, with a huge shell midden beside it. For those who don't know, shell middens are piles of shells and other things created by Aboriginal people living in an area pre-colonization. Evidently, the Aboriginal people thought this spot was just as nice as we did. We continued through the trees, and before long the valley ended at the bank of the same tidal river we saw earlier. It's quite something to behold. We've managed to somewhat shake off our earlier fears, and are feeling a little more lighthearted. We start back towards the grass, so we can head back to the car to get our tents etc. The crow is still sitting on the branch. We're watching. She hasn't come back to the camp. Obviously, we're already on edge, so we drop what we're doing and go look for her. She's not on the beach. We begin to walk back through the trees. We find her, her eyes totally transfixed on the surface of the pool of water. We call out to her and it's like she snaps out of some weird hypnotic trance. Confusedly, she comes back to camp. We get the camp all set up. At this point we're probably 20 minutes from nightfall. Dad and I go out to the beach, just chatting or whatever. Look along the top of the ridge which looks down on the beach. There's a tall white figure standing along the top of the cliff looking down on us. We both just stare at it, terrified, trying to convince ourselves that it's just a rock or a tree trunk, or something fucking rational to explain what we're seeing. It's definitely not human, whatever the fuck it is. We go back to camp, having decided not to share what we've seen with the others. Really fucking shook by this point. The simmering dread is becoming more and more pronounced. Me and Dad sit down, and decide to try and unwind for a bit to get our mind off the situation. We were both into Magic the Gathering at the time, and we'd purchased a couple of booster packs earlier that day. Decide to open them and have a bit of fun. We opened probably 6 or 7 packs. Realized that without fail the rare card in each pack had been a black rare, some sort of demon, or something else relating to death. Absolutely inexplicable. It gets dark. Decide that it'd be best to just try and sleep. We all just staring at him. Albino kangaroos are very rare? He tells me it was at least 5 feet tall. Recall the tall white figure we saw earlier. Suddenly, an immense feeling of dread overcomes him, and he decides it's time for us to get the fuck out of there. Wakes me up, I think the others were already awake. We pack up frantically and literally run out as quickly as we can. Get back to the car. It starts, thank fuck. The time is 11:02 p.m. Dad claims that he hadn't slept at all and that he'd been sitting outside for no more than an hour after we all went to bed. Somehow what he'd felt was an hour was actually about 4. We somehow managed to navigate our way out of the maze of dirt roads and get back onto the highway. Words cannot describe the weight that lifted when we drove out of that place. It honestly felt like I'd just avoided death. We were all feeling kind of giddy, reeling from what had happened. Needed a place to sleep. Dad looks on his phone and finds an overnight spot nearby. Drive down the highway till we get to the turnoff. Follow the dirt road for a couple of minutes as it winds its way into the forest. End up in this fairly run-of-the-mill camping spot. There's a couple caravans around. Quickly pitch and get into bed, feeling very relieved. Finally at peace. Hear a faint sound, barely perceivable. It slowly gets louder. Louder. The sound suddenly gets dramatically louder and we're starting to freak out again. I think it must be a plane passing really low overhead. Just when the sound gets almost unbearably loud, it passes us and begins to recede into the distance. Too exhausted to freak out, We all fall asleep. We all slept well. When we got up in the morning, the source of the previous night's sound became clear. Though we had been on the road to the campsite for several minutes, it was essentially just following the highway, and the campsite, which we thought was somewhat in the forest, actually bordered on the road. The sound we heard was a big freight truck driving down the highway, passing within 25 meters of where we were camped. After what happened that night, we did a little bit of research, and asked a couple questions. Apparently, there were some Aboriginal genocides which happened within that national park. Could it be that that picturesque valley was the location of one of them? That the spirits of those dead still lingered? On top of that, my father spoke to a friend of his who has worked closely with Aboriginal people. The albino kangaroo is a powerful symbol in Aboriginal folklore, the guardian of the dead. I still think about that night a fair bit, definitely the scariest thing that has ever happened to me. Something about that truck and that sound has stuck with me. It seems really symbolic to me. We came so close to contact with something immense and powerful, but at the last minute we managed to make it out. I wonder if that truck was a message from whichever spirits we met with that night, making sure we knew just how close we were. Scary shit.
I have stories to share from my childhood home, including the shadow man that haunted my sister. But first, a bit of history and some general stories from the house to help set the mood for the type of things we experienced. The house was built in the 40s or 50s as a duplex. My grandparents bought it in the 60s and my grandpa converted it into a single-family home. My parents then bought it in the 90s when they moved out. When we moved in, I was 8 and my sister was 1. Family members from all 3 generations mentioned seeing shadow figures and things move in empty rooms. My mom specifically told me she heard voices growing up and knew appliances would turn on/off in the kitchen like someone was playing with them. A key thing to know is that the basement was left partly unfinished. There was a half wall that ran the full length of the house to keep dirt on one side, but otherwise it was exposed to the earth beneath the house. I think that is where the source of the energy came from, if you believe that kind of thing. And now some spooky stories. This one was told to me. I was 3 or 4. Mom, Grandma, and I are in the dining room. They're doing whatever and not paying too much attention to me. After a while, they notice I've been talking to someone. They turn to see me waving and saying bye-bye to someone in back room past the kitchen. But no one was in the house except us. When visiting, would sometimes see the cats wake up from napping, hiss, and leave empty rooms. Sometimes the dog would stare and growl at empty corners. Then we move in. I'd smell the strong scent of a cigar randomly at night. I heard voices when everyone was asleep. I'd sometimes hear a loud banging from the basement, like the dryer door being slammed shut over and over. Sometimes the basement felt fine. Other times I'd be filled with so much dread that I'd rush back upstairs and refuse to go down there for days. This happened randomly for the whole time I lived there. I moved out when I was 19. There were 2 instances that happened specifically to me that have stuck with me over the years. The first instance. B8 and we just moved in. Mom organized a sleepover with some kids from school. She thought a camp out in the living would be a good way to help me feel like the house was ours now. The living room light had a dimmer switch. Turned the light super low so the living is in a warm glow, that way kids can find their way to the bathroom. We're all in sleeping bags and falling asleep one by one after watching a movie. I'm the last one awake because something seems off about the room. A shape in the hallway catches my eyes. It looks like a kid about our size is squatting down and looking through the doorway at us. Think at first it's one of my friends being weird. Count the heads in sleeping bags. Nope, everyone is here. Lay there for what feels like hours just starting at this shape. Pretty sure I even saw it move like it was shifting its weight while squatting. Eventually fall asleep. The second instance. Jump forward in time, I'm 14 or 15. My bedroom is a small room attached to another, larger room that is then connected to the hallway. The larger room was my gaming room because that was cool as a teenager. Futon, all my systems, a mini fridge, the works. Anyway, it's summer and I used to have a fucked up sleeping schedule. It's 4 a.m. and I'm waiting for something to download on my Xbox 360. Decide to lay down in bed to rest while it finishes. Cat is asleep by me. Lay there for a bit and then suddenly hear the sound of someone running in the other room. It's fast but small, light steps. Sounds like a kid is running from the hall, through the room, and then stopping right as my bedroom door. My sister would have been 8 or 9 by this point, so I think it's her. Go to get up to see WTF she wants at 4 a.m. Turn to look up to see no one at the doorway. Look into the room. It's empty and my door is still shut. Cat heard it too and is hunched over on my bed. Fur on her back sticking all the way and she's hissing. Cat refuses to go into the room. Think that I either dreamed it or was just super tired and imagined it for whatever reason. But if that was the case, then why was the cat freaked out? Try not to think about it and go back to playing video games until dawn. Ready for the Shadow Man?
LOL, you got a little Slav ghost. Shoulda invited him to hang out.
I should have. But there was more in the house than just Slav kid ghost. Whatever else was there seemed more fixed on my sister. She turned 5 and developed this behavior of not wanting to sleep in her room at night. Wouldn't go in there to play once it got dark. She'd fall asleep on the couch, parents would move her to her room, and she'd wake up in the middle night to back out into the living room to sleep. This went on for a few weeks before my parents tried to figure out why she didn't want to be in her room. She told them that she didn't like it because it's scary. Few more months ago and my parents tried multiple things to try to make her feel safe in her room. Night lights, a TV, staying in there with her until she falls asleep, etc. But she never stayed in the room for the full night. Eventually they had us switch rooms. This worked for about a week before she was back to the old routine. A little bit before she turned 6, she mentioned how the closest was scary because the Shadow Man lived there. The closest didn't have a door, it just had a curtain hanging down it. She talked about how the Shadow Man always peeked through the curtain and watched her, which she didn't like. But I slept in that room for years with no problems. Parents had us switch rooms again. This time they painted the other bedroom in bright colors and figured the change in scenery plus being away from the closet would comfort her. It worked for a bit. But in a matter of weeks she was back in the living and mentioning that the Shadow Man moved rooms too. Other room closest actually had a door on it. Parents tried to tell her that there was no Shadow Man and that no one could peek through the door. She'd tell them that she could hear him in there waiting for the door to be opened. Remember one night she was actually in her room with all the lights on playing. Our mom went to put clothes away in the closet and my sister ran out of the room crying because she saw the Shadow Man escape. She developed night terrors after that. This went on for about another 1 to 2 years. Parents were at their wits' end. They talked to a doctor and a child counselor trying to figure out if there was something else triggering her nightmares and behavior, but no one knew. The kicker is our family was Catholic but had been reluctant to do anything or acknowledge anything on a supernatural level. They were afraid of getting involved with something demonic or something. There were crosses in our rooms, but it didn't seem to stop the Shadow Man from walking around the room, according to my sister. Our mom finally approached our priest about what's going on. He suggested blessing the room, so our mom does. My sister said that only angered the Shadow Man and her night terrors got worse. Stranger things started occurring more around the house that everyone noticed. More movements from the corner of your eye. Cats would get scared randomly, get super uneasy feelings when passing a dark room like something was waiting for you there, stuff like that. Mom went back to the priest. This time he came over and blessed the whole house. Things seemed to have gotten better upstairs. But in the basement, the banging got more frequently and the dread happened more often. Pretty sure they trapped whatever in the basement. But at least my sister could sleep in her room again.
Letting dog out to do her business, have to leash her since we don't have a fence in our yard and are right beside a highway, she chases cars. It's 2 a.m., usually stay up really late because I work weird late shifts. Down the road at the end of my street is a dike that creates a raised walking trail along the river. The trail is raised above the chain link gate/fence that allows entry so you can see everything walking on the trail clearly. Don't usually see anything ever at this time of night, maybe the odd deer or coyote being lit up by the street light near the gate as they walk by. Like looking out in that direction as the dog does her thing because of the nice clear view of the night sky and no buildings in that direction. All of a sudden see something struggling to crawl along the side of the dike facing me. Slightly larger than a deer, legs were about as thick as a person's but set the same way as a deer. No fur, just what looks like lumpy, pink-tinted skin lit up by the orange of the streetlight. Struggling to crawl like a person doing pick-related. Struggling to keep upright since it's moving along the sloped side of the dike. Dog has noticed this thing and is standing in an aggressive pose but not making a sound. I am spooked but glad it hasn't looked in my direction, so I wrap the dog's leash around my hand and start slowly walking back to the house and trying to pull the dog with me. As I move past my car and have the thing out of sight, I hear a really fucking loud snarling sound and a bunch of grunts come from that direction. Jump down the stairs into the basement entrance to house, pull dog inside. Lock door, close blinds, grab my gun, mute TV, and sit in silence for an hour. Don't hear anything after that, so I go to bed, and start going to bed at 10 p.m.
Be me, tiny 8 to 12 years old BB. Lying in my room, used to have tons of extremely disturbing sleep paralysis episodes. Episodes often featured dark figures standing bowed over me. Other episodes featured existential dread, such as infinite hallways that would stretch forever with geometrical glowing shapes or falling through millions of shapes. About 3 a.m., I think. Woke up in bed, no idea what's happening. See my dad's shadow passing by in hallway. We have automatic lights that turn on with movement. Passes my room, I try to call out, voice doesn't come out, shadow disappears. Suddenly light turns on again, shadow standing in my doorway and just blankly staring at me, clearly my dad as I can now see his face in the partial light. Continues to do so for an hour or so before would slowly walk over to me while tapping fingers on closet and wall. Just stands over me with dead-eyed stare, looking through my soul for at least another half hour. I remember this vividly. I was 100% conscious during all this, and my worst memory was when I asked my dad why he was in my room, that he answered he hadn't been in my room at all. I didn't know what sleep paralysis was back then.